Or should I say good afternoon? Good afternoon. Yes, let's get that right. So welcome to Unity of Charlotte. My name is Reverend Jim Ernston. I'm co-minister here with Reverend Lisa Herklotz. So welcome. If you're here in the sanctuary, if you're at home on Zoom or traveling, or if you're watching this recording later on YouTube, we welcome you to this service. August 6th, 1845, what happened? Probably. I'm thinking of something else. Myrtle Fillmore was born in 1845. So we are celebrating her birthday today, along with everyone else who is having a birthday in August. So Myrtle Fillmore, co-founder of the Unity Movement with her husband Charles, was born on August 6th, 1845. Please join me in reciting our mission statement. So, out loud, Unity of Charlotte is the place where we nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. Simply put, you guys are awesome. We are here to love, grow, and serve. Love, grow, and serve. If you're here for the first time, we would love a chance just to say hello. If you're here for the first or second time, just gently raise your hand and we will acknowledge your presence. Nobody here in the sanctuary. Do I see a hand? Yes, 2 hands. Thank you for joining us. Feel free to come ask us any questions about Unity of Charlotte specifically or about Unity Movement in general. We will be having fellowship afterwards, so I'll give you a chance to talk to me or anyone here in the congregation. And stick around, we have a potluck going on today, and you can join us for some food as well. So glad you're here. If you're here for the first time on Zoom, you can type in your name and we will greet you that way as well. And there we go. We've got the packets going out to those new folks out there. Know that we also have a website and we also have a newsletter to sign up. That newsletter gives you specifics as to what's going on from week to week. If you are not signed up for our newsletter, you are missing out because it is awesome. A few announcements before we move on. Today, I've already mentioned this, is Potluck Sunday and birthday celebrations. So, a few reminders today. After the service, we're going to move out into the common area for that fellowship and potluck for that food. Children must be supervised throughout the food line. Please, unless you are already signed up, do not enter the kitchen area. The line starts back from that door, so please let them go in and out. Let them get set up before we start and block that line. Also, new member workshop series. We've had we've had multiple classes, and we've got one last class. That is the new member class scheduled for August 19th. What is that, 2? That's almost 2 weeks. That's a Saturday at 1 p.m. The registration is required for that, so please sign up for that. Know that we're going to be having our membership installation in 2 weeks. So not only do we have the classes for new members, but also if you are transferring a membership from another church, another Unity church, and want to become a member here, let us know, because you're going to be part of that installation process as well. You did not need to attend the classes, but you will go through that installation ceremony with us on August 20th. So please let us know if you're coming from another Unity church and want to transfer that membership here to Unity of Charlotte. Let's move into prayer. We take this time. I invite you to close your eyes, to settle in as we acknowledge our oneness, that oneness with the divine, that oneness with each other, that oneness that says that we are divine. We're grateful for the chance to come here together to meet in person, but also for the technology that allows us to see this online or recorded at a later date. We're grateful for that technology. We affirm peace and harmony within our lives as we move throughout our day, throughout the next week as well, knowing that that divinity within our soul, within ourselves, that divinity shows up as wisdom throughout our days ahead. And we're so grateful. And with that we say, amen. So join with me as we speak our unity prayer of oneness. So out loud. There is one presence and one power in my life and universe, God the good, omnipotence. And we claim and affirm this presence in our lives as love. So now is the time in our service where we can speak out loud those within our lives, family, friends, acquaintances that may need prayer. So I invite you to say their name out loud and as we hold them in our hearts. So please say that now. We hold these names in our hearts in prayer, knowing that ultimately all is well. Amen. Know also that Silent Unity is here for us. They are headquartered in Kansas City at the Village. That is the word I'm searching for. At the Village, they are 24/7 prayer ministry that you can call at that 1-800 Now Pray number, and they will pray with you any time of day or night. And now we are going to have Chris come up as we do the Daily Word.
Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Faith, Daily Word, Sunday, August 6th. No matter my need, I begin with faith. In the story of unity, James Dillard Freeman tells from the unity movement's early days, during a period of financial insufficiency, staff gathered together to pray. An associate said, "Let us pray the money holds out." Co-founder Myrtle Fillmore countered, "Oh no, let us pray for our faith holds out." Today, I remember the importance of faith. All my endeavors, like everyone, I will need the kinds of things during my lifetime. More money rather than prayer for specific things or results of praying for the understanding and clarity to draw upon my faith is the best place to begin. I believe in the absolute goodness of God. Pardon me. I believe in myself and this spiritual being endowed with the gift of faith to direct however I choose. All things can be done for the one who believes. Mark 9:23. And those are the results for me in the Daily Word. The compassion sure does flow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We appreciate.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Good to see you all here. Oh, so Reverend Jim and myself are going to do a series of talks in the next few weeks on affirmative prayer. We just did 2 affirmative prayer workshops, and we got really excited about having a deeper look at what prayer really means in unity, because we have a lot of ideas of what prayer is. As a matter of fact, how many of you can remember when you were young memorizing little prayers? You said before you went to bed, yes, or before you ate a meal, or if you wanted something. Those are wonderful little memories of what we have, or what we taught what prayer was. But unity has a really different perspective on prayer. And as a matter of fact, the perspective they hold is what unity, the whole unity movement, is actually founded on. This is what Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, the co-founders of this movement, taught. This was what the whole unity movement was. Myrtle using this prayer practice to heal herself of tuberculosis. The organization of Silent Unity, which is a prayer line that people can call or write to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. These are the longest standing ideas and foundations of unity. So we're going to spend the next couple of weeks talking about what we mean by affirmative prayer and how that might be different from what we've learned prayer was in our younger years. We broke prayer down into 3 elements, and that's what our series is going to be on. We called it prayer in words, prayer in silence, and prayer in action. And it's important to know that the prayer practice we're talking about is all 3 of these elements. Today I'm going to focus on prayer in words. And I named it language as a pathway to God, because prayer is about coming into communion with God, coming into a God consciousness. That's the purpose of prayer. And today we're going to look at how our words and our language help us do that. But in and of itself alone, it's not the whole practice of prayer. It includes silence and it includes action. So we'll be getting those as we move along. I'm going to start by talking about a movie Reverend Jim and I rewatched some time ago. How many people have seen the movie Arrival? Arrival. 1, 2, okay, a few. It's about aliens who come to Earth, and they arrive at around the globe at different spots in different countries. And of course what happens, and they just hover there. There's these big like monolithic things, they're just hovering. And nobody really knows what they're here for and what's going on. So of course what's the first thing out is military, of course, to make sure we're not being attacked. And then the scientists come out, because they begin to understand that whatever these aliens are, they're trying to communicate something to us. So they start to bring scientists in to figure out how to communicate with them. And they bring a woman, in America, they bring a woman who's a linguist. So in this little script up here, Ian is the scientist, Louise is the linguist. And they have this brief conversation as she's beginning to understand we can't approach this from the normal way we think of language. So the scientist says, if you immerse yourself into a foreign language, then you can actually rewire your brain. If you immerse yourself in a foreign language, it actually rewires your brain. So the linguist says, yeah, that's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's a theory that the language you speak determines how you think. The scientist says, yeah, it affects how you see everything. And she says, well, so let's say that I taught them to play chess, or I taught them chess instead of English, the language of chess. Every conversation then would be a game, and then every idea is going to be expressed through opposition, victory, or defeat. You see the problem. If all I ever give you was a hammer, and the scientist says, yeah, everything's a nail. If this becomes the context by which we speak to each other, then that becomes how we perceive our world. So, a little bit about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Next slide, please. Oh, wait a minute. I have control. Look at that. Oh, I like that. So this is what the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is a proposal that a particular language one speaks influences the way one thinks about their reality. I would say their perception of reality, because with each language they're perceiving reality differently. Another way of saying it is that the grammatical and verbal structure of a person's languages influences how they perceive the world. Now here's some examples. I don't know if you know this, and the Inuit tribes have hundreds of words for snow. Hundreds. How many words do we have for snow? Right. So how do you think in their world they perceive snow? They would have a much deeper, more refined perception of the world they're living in than we would. Another really interesting one I found is that the Hopi language does not reflect time as we know it. It does not have present, past, or future tenses. Think about that. It doesn't have present, past, and future tenses in that language. It kind of blew my mind. Like, how do you talk? And it says that they speak from a reference point of manifested or unmanifested domains. So imagine learning this language. To learn this language, you would have to have a shift in your consciousness to really be able to communicate in that language. Isn't that amazing? So while the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis is saying that the language influences how we see our world, I looked back a little deeper into language, and where does language come from but our thoughts? They're words that we're putting our thoughts into words in order to communicate to somebody what we're perceiving and what we understand the world to be around us. So going back to the movie Arrival, the alien language, that's a little symbol let me go back one. The little symbol over there is how they were communicating with them. And they were all different circles. And she finally began to understand, I can't perceive this based on what I know my language to be. And as she began to let that go, she started having experiences of time not being sequential. She started having experiences of the past and the future and the present all kind of blending. And what they found out is the aliens actually came to give them this language as a gift, the human beings, so that they could further their own technology and experience of life. So it actually saved humanity because the aliens knew that somewhere in the future they needed the humans to help them out. So kind of a fascinating, I hope I didn't ruin the storyline. If people want to go watch it, well, just forget that part and go. It's a fascinating movie to watch, how they come through this. So why are we talking about all this? Because Charles Fillmore says that prayer is the language of spirituality. Prayer is the language of spirituality. And affirmative prayer has everything to do with the state of consciousness we're trying to move into and the words we use to help us get there. And the words are reflecting our thoughts. And as we change our thoughts and our words, we can shift our consciousness. And that's why what I mean by language is a pathway to God, as a pathway to God. So let's begin by looking at where we are. What is our default language right now? How do we listen? Do you ever listen to yourself talk? What do you say to yourself? How do you speak to yourself? How do you speak to others? How do you respond to a stressful situation? If we look out into our amazing world of social media, it's pretty easy to see what psychology calls a negativity bias. We have learned It is not our natural state, but we have learned a habit to be biased towards negativity. But it's a learned habit, but our culture is steeped in it. And so just think about it, because in the Western culture, we're really saturated with the idea that power means power over and is often referred to in the way of violence. Violence is required in order to maintain power and control. So think about some of the terms we used. Wow, you really killed it in there. I bombed that test. My presentation knocked them out. Let's see, I would like to play devil's advocate. In sports, just consider our sports arenas. When people come together in the excitement of two teams competing against each other, there are some cheers that are cheering your team on to score goals, but what is it more often? More often, the chants are about demolishing that team, their opponents. Knock them off the field. You know, this is important to know that we are steeped in a language that reflects negativity. And the more we continue to use that language and those words, the more we're going to perceive a world of negativity. But once again, I'll remind you, this is not our natural state. It's a learned state, and what was learned can be unlearned. So let's see. From there, let's move into affirmative prayer, because affirmative prayer is using language to reawaken our oneness in God. Affirmative prayer is using language to shift our consciousness back into an awareness of who and what we are in our divine source. Using our words. So we're learning how to re-language our thoughts and words, which would actually rewire our brains. And as our brains get rewired, our consciousness expands. And what happens is we begin to see reality from a whole different perspective. We see our world, we see our life, we see ourselves from a whole different perspective. And this is the whole purpose of affirmative prayer and why it is such a powerful, powerful, transformative practice. And it is a practice because what are we doing? We are trying to get out of our habitual way of speaking, and we're learning a new language. And it takes a little effort. Doesn't it take, have you ever tried to learn a foreign language? Anybody here? I tried to learn French as an adult. I loved French. I loved it, and I wanted to learn it. And I took class after class. In fact, there was a few of adults. I lived in Madison, Wisconsin at the time, and there was about 4 or 5 of us that just kept taking the intermediate class through the college. It was a community course, and we got to know the teacher, and we really had a lot of fun with it. But I can't speak French today. It's hard. So learning a language, it takes effort, it takes intention, and it takes your desire to truly want to make that shift. James Dillett Freeman says, "For prayer is a way of life as well as a way of facing life." Prayer is a way, so prayer is not just something we sit down and go, oh wow, I really need help with this, or wow, I really want this. It's about how we live our life and how we face the things that we confront in life. Affirmative prayer, he goes on to say, it's the ability to see the facts and flaws, yet know they are not reality. And I like this line because it doesn't mean that we're not going to see our earthly condition and the struggles and the challenges that being in this earthly existence brings. But we don't carry them as our reality. Another way I might put it is, we either believe we're human beings using prayer to try to be spiritual, or remembering we are spiritual beings expressing in this human condition. And that's a shift of consciousness, which our language and our thoughts and words can help us make. So affirmative prayer acknowledges earthly conditions, but it affirms our eternal truth. Now, this is not just about changing to positive thoughts. And so I want to be clear about this. I talked about this a little bit in my last talk too, and we talked about it in the affirmative prayer class, because the power of positive thinking is a very well-known practice, and it's out there in a million different forms. But I want to clarify the difference between the power of positive thinking and the power of affirmative prayer. The power of positive thinking says, I can manifest whatever I want through the power of my thoughts. And you can do that through practice and focus and intention. And you can manifest things in your human life. But there will always be some challenge and some limitation to it, because that's what humanness is. It has limitations to it. Affirmative prayer says, let that go for a moment and come back into an awareness, a consciousness of who you are as a spiritual being, unlimited, eternal, and creative. Step into that consciousness first, your consciousness in God mind, and then declare that as your truth. And as Jesus said, all things will then be added to you. Whatever you need will easily manifest. But see how that's different. Affirmative prayer starts with faith and declaration in your truth as a spiritual being. So it's not just about changing things to sound more positive, but it is about affirming divine truth, even in the face of what appears to oppose it. So let's take a minute to think about how that might look. If someone is dealing with an illness, this might look like following whatever wisdom you receive to take care of your body. That's the action part. But all the while affirming that mighty currents of God's healing love flow through me now. Mighty currents of God's healing love flow through me now. My body is whole and perfect. And then do the things from that consciousness that care for your body. If it's finances, you might say, I am whole and free, dealing with financial crisis. I am an open channel to God's abundance, and all forms of good flow to me and through me now. And then take whatever action steps come to you to begin to make that manifest in your world. Does that give you a sense of how affirmative prayer is a little different? It's a little different than saying, I want that red bicycle in the window. It's so beautiful, and I really would love to have that. And then going into all the details, I want it to have this, and I want it to have that. Now, you can do that because you are a powerful creator. So please hear me. I'm not taking that away from you. But I'm saying you are meant for something so much bigger. And your life will become so much bigger as you continue to practice the prayer and language of spirituality, which is remembering you as a divine child of God. So, my last point is, how do we use affirmative prayer to access presence? Presence being God. Again, I'm going to go back to James Dillett Freeman. James Dillett Freeman, if you don't know, is a poet laureate who was a foundational unity teacher. And he wrote a lot about prayer. And another thing he said is true prayer is really just apprehending the changeless truth of life, of God, of spirit, being expressed in all things. True prayer really is apprehending our changeless nature, or that changeless nature of the divine that's expressing in each and every living thing, including myself. This is a consciousness that is unquestionably available to us because it is who we are. So this is a wonderful little book, foundational unity teaching book called Teach Us to Pray. It was written by Charles and Cora Fillmore. This was after Myrtle had passed. And in this book, he says this: we find that we must train our mind in trust, look persistently and continuously to God for all things, and rest in the assurance that what we ask and affirm in spirit will surely come to pass. When you turn your attention to spirit, your mind makes contact with a realm of ideas very much above the level of your common thinking. That statement is what I'm trying to express about the difference between the power of positive thinking and affirmative prayer. The power of positive thinking is what we do within our human consciousness, and we have within that awareness a limited sense of ideas and possibilities. But when we make contact with our Christ consciousness, that God mind, then we're now in a realm of ideas that are very different. This is where everything is possible. When Jesus said everything is possible through God, this is what he meant. When you move your consciousness through the power of your language to an awareness of yourself in the eternal divine source, then the realm of ideas that you will have accessible to you are nothing like what we're limited to here. The realm of ideas is very much above the level of your common thinking, and when you strike this mental stratosphere, kind of sounds like an alien, you are tremendously lifted up. Then you make your statements of truth, and whatever you decree comes to pass. And another quote I pulled out which says that is, get a deep conviction of the truth of your cause, your spiritual cause, God, then speak it forth in strong words, and it will surely come to pass. So when we talk about affirmative prayer, we are talking about the very foundation of what the unity movement is here to bring about, to lift the consciousness not only of individuals, but of our race, what they call the race consciousness, who we are collectively, because we are one. And when one of us is lifted into that consciousness, others can also be lifted. As the more we move into that stratosphere of divine ideas, the more our own life will continue to flow in a way that perhaps we hadn't even been able to envision. But however it does move forward, in whatever challenges appear to us, we will be able to experience it with a sense of peace, a sense of confidence, and a sense of faith, because we know we are spiritual beings, regardless of the situations as they may be appearing in the world. So let me wrap this up by saying, well, how do we practice this? This is a practice. They're nice words, and of course we're talking about words, but this is meant to be a practice, affirmative prayer practice. So here's what I'm going to share with you. There may be a lot of different ways to put this, but I would say the first thing you want to do is notice your physiological responses. So notice when you're feeling out of peace. Usually for me, it's like my breath or my gut. I might start feeling a tension in my gut. You might feel your heart start racing. You might feel a little sweaty or whatever. Everybody has their physiological signals in their body that tells them you're not experiencing peace. And we need to be aware of that, because our awareness, our mindfulness of it, is how we know we need to move back into a higher consciousness. So it's kind of like checking the instrument panel on a car's dashboard. Right? When you're driving along, especially if you're on a long drive, you're constantly checking the panel to make sure everything's going okay. There's no red indicators going up. Well, that's kind of how we become as we move in our life. We're mindful of how we're experiencing ourselves in that moment. And then with this information, we now have some input to know whether we need to make some adjustments, make some shifts. So when you notice, when a signal has come up, and you're going, okay, particularly, what language are you using to talk to yourself? Or what language are you using to speak to another? What language is it? Is it affirming the truth of who you are and who we are in an abundant divine universe? Or is it fearful or limited or angry? Just notice. And then begin to reframe the situation. Breath is always the perfect place to start. That's the magical pause to make a shift. And then look for how you might reframe that. What is the truth here? This is my experience as a human being. I'm experiencing this. We don't want to deny what we're experiencing. We're experiencing it. We're reacting to it. We're already in that place of believing it. But now we have an opportunity to reconsider what our truth is. What is the deeper truth of who we are? Start to establish new patterns of redirecting your attention affirmatively. The negativity bias we may live in is a habit we're changing through the practice of creating affirmative statements of truth. Instead of this, I know this to be true. This may be what I'm experiencing, but the truth of me is this. I also said use connections with others who are in this practice, or who know how to do affirmative prayer. Because the more you connect with people like that and share with them and speak to them, you are both raised up. There's a power to coming together. So you don't always have to do this alone. This is why we really want to get a prayer chaplain group together, which I know in the right and perfect timing is going to show up and manifest. Then finally, savor positive moments. Have you ever noticed how when something negative happens, it replays? Oh, maybe speaking just for about myself, but it replays over and over in our minds. Oh, I wish I'd done that differently. Oh, I really messed that up. Or, oh, I should have said something different in that situation. When we have a positive moment, how often do we replay that? That beautiful moment of connection when you were able to shift and connect with somebody, and it was just this beautiful experience. When you have those, live in them. Remember them often. Relive them in your mind. Let that be the pattern of thoughts that's playing in your mind. That's a powerful way to shift. And the last thing I'm going to say about it is stay with it. It's a habit we're changing. Habits don't always change overnight. They take time. This is a practice. And even Charles Fillmore said, prayer is cumulative. The more you say an affirmation and continue to affirm it in your life, the stronger it gets. The stronger it gets embedded in your brain, that's that rewiring, and the stronger you move into that state of consciousness of knowing your divine nature. Practice makes perfect. So don't be discouraged if you do an affirmation. It doesn't immediately work. It might. I'm not saying it can't, because it absolutely can. It doesn't necessarily take time, but often for us, because we're undoing a lot of past learning, it may take a moment. So just a quick story about how I have experienced this myself. Recently, I have been dealing with some chronic back pain. And it's not new. It kind of flares up every now and then, but it's just really annoying to me because I feel like it just slows me down and it makes me feel very distracted. And the worst time is when I wake up in the middle of the night. I don't know about you, but sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, and that's when my little negativity bias voices are going the strongest. And I wake up and they're going, oh, it hurts. Why does it hurt? Why is this happening to me? I thought I was done with this. Or even worse, they'll go, oh, what if it's the sign of something worse? Oh, what if it's like terminal? Ah! I mean, voices get nuts. Luckily, I do have another voice in my head. I don't know if you have several voices. They're all my voices, by the way. I'm not crazy. Well, maybe. They're all my voices, but I have several ones so I can have conversations with myself. And there's always a voice that's going, okay, wait a minute. We know this is not the truth. We don't need to continue down that conversation or that road. Let's just take a pause, and I'll usually take a deep breath. And let's focus on what you know the truth is about you. And for me, normally it starts off with, I am a divine child of God. I am a whole, perfect expression of God. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that the very healing presence of God is already active in my body, in my heart, in my mind, and in my soul. Now, I might have to say that a few times before I begin to feel that presence. But do you see how that language is going to carry me to a whole different state of mind than, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Something terrible's happening. And then fear takes over. So that's just a little example. I would share with you, this is still a practice for me, but it gets stronger and stronger. And it takes a little bit of learning what are the truth principles, and that's why we're going to be holding through the fall but we're going to be holding some foundational unity principle courses so that we can all get stronger in knowing, understanding at a deeper level what spiritual truth is for us, what it means, because from that's what you're calling upon when you use affirmative prayer. All right. So just to recap, we talked a little bit about how we use words, our language, in a way that can actually rewire our brains, expand our consciousness to change our perspective of ourselves and our world. We can choose, instead of that habit of negativity that our culture has been saturated in, we can choose to connect to the ideas of truth, to the ideas of spirit, of God, and we can create powerful affirmative statements of truth and then use them powerfully, boldly, confidently, and with faith that this is true. So I stand here and behold the truth of the divinity in each and every one of you, knowing you have the creative power in your connection with your divine source. Call it God, call it spirit, call it mind, whatever you call it. Know that you are not limited. So it is. Thank you. I probably ran over a little bit, but I would like to do a short meditation to just take a moment to breathe in what you've just heard. I didn't come up with one affirmation because I really would invite you this week to pick one area of challenge, just one, and really notice your language around it. Notice your language. If you can do that right now, go ahead and do it. And then seek to create an affirmative statement of truth. And practice that throughout this week. And notice. So I invite you now just to take a deep breath in. Let it out on a sigh. Feel your shoulders drop. Your face relax. Your hands rest loosely and comfortably on your lap. Another deep breath in. Another sigh. Feel your mind settle. If you have any voices that are continuing to try to catch your attention and speak, just say, I hear you, and let them gently rest, just for a moment. And feel a sense of calm, a sense of quiet, knowing you need do nothing right now, but open your heart and open your mind to the truth of who you are, to the powerful presence of Spirit here and now, who will guide you to the perfect words to practice in affirmative prayer. So into the silence for just a few minutes. And as you're ready, and you begin to come back to this space, remember and say to yourself, I am a divine child of God, or spirit, or mind. I am a divine child of God, spirit, mind. And so it is.
So as we consistently give, we see all the different ways that we can give up there. We've also added the ability to use PayPal, and you'll see that option out in the hallway there as well. Please join me in our statement. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.